I'm so
Oh,
excited for this conversation. Thank you for
yes.
taking time
Oh my
today. And
goodness. I'm thrilled. Thank you
yeah,
for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
yeah. And I can't even remember. I was trying to think of where I saw this book because I can't
Yeah.
even remember where I heard about it. And
Oh,
then I
how
was like,
funny.
this is so great. And
Oh,
every mom wants a book that is small for their
yeah.
purse or pocket and that is
Yeah.
like, just give me the stuff and then tell
Yes.
me how to do it. And so as soon as I
Oh,
shared it, I had at least
oh,
one friend be like, oh, I'm ordering that.
oh, that's
So
cool.
I'm excited to share it more
Oh,
and to read
yeah.
your other ones because I've only read The
Yeah,
Four
you
Habits
read
of
that.
Raising
Oh, yeah.
Joy-Filled
Oh,
Kids.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah. They're fun little books. And we tried to keep it just short, simple, like not too much.
yeah.
Yeah, we didn't want it to be a big book.
Except the problem is, it's like, when you actually do that and there's no
Oh,
fluff,
yeah.
it's like everything is underlined.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm
And I'm
glad to
like,
see that.
I'm
Oh,
like, that's what I have to do to be able to, for book
oh,
club
yeah.
or whatever to
Oh, that's
discuss.
cool.
But
Well, I'm honored to
yeah.
be here with you.
Well, thank you. Well, welcome to Only Love Today. And
Thank
we
you.
have Chris Coursey here with us. Thanks for being here, Chris.
I'm so glad to be here. Really looking forward to our time together.
We're excited too. And I'm excited to learn. I was just talking to my husband. I was like, I know that the Lord is blessing this podcast, but sometimes I'm
Mm,
like, really, I'm just doing this so I can be
mm.
encouraged and equipped and then
Yes.
share what I learn with others.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to just discuss more of what I've learned recently in your book. But for those of
Yeah.
you that are going to hear this, if you don't know who Chris is, um, Chris has been working for 30 years developing and practicing brain based solutions to train people, families, and communities to make relationships work. And Chris started out his career specializing in severe trauma and abuse. And he's also pastored a small congregation in Michigan for a number of years. Chris is a published author with over 10 books in print, including The Joy Switch. And he co authored his most recent book, The Four Habits of Joy-Filled People. And today we're discussing his book, The Four Habits of Raising Joy-Filled Kids. But Chris enjoys spending time with his wife, Jen, and their two sons, Matthew and Andrew. And in addition to studying, writing, jogging, and exercising, he enjoys the outdoors and is one of the rare people who actually likes the snow in
Ooh,
Michigan. So,
yeah.
yay. Do you
Yeah.
have
It's
snow
true.
right now?
We actually had some snow today, but it's mixed with rain, so it
Oh,
didn't stick.
that's not
But
the good kind.
yeah, I was hoping we'd get a little more.
That means it's too cold and the humidity's too high.
That's exactly it. Yep, you got that right.
Oh,
Yep,
it's
it's
like,
very wet.
yes, it's like hoodie weather here in northern
Yes.
Colorado. So it's like
Okay.
40 or 50 right now,
Oh
but
yeah.
we long for the snow too because it can get
Fun.
chilly like that here and
Oh
not
yeah.
stick. And then I'm like, go away, Midwest.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I get
We're in
that.
the West. But well, thank you for being here today. I know that you have several of these little awesome books, and I'm excited to read The Joy Switch, which I
Mm,
just kind of am learning about. And you even have these tests online that I
yeah.
thought were awesome that we can talk about
Yeah.
too. But I just
Great.
wanted to know, like, maybe give us a snippet of what led you on this path to researching joy and the brain science of it and just
Mhm.
inspiring you to write a book like this.
Yeah, I joined ministry right out of college, and my colleagues were friends with a guy named Dr. Jim Wilder. And Jim Wilder he's an author, and he's what's called a neurotheologian, just somebody that loves the Bible and loves
Yeah.
to look at how God designed the brain.
Okay.
And so I actually came across Jim's work in the 1990s, and when I heard Jim talking about the brain and how it runs on the fuel of glad to be together joy, it honestly lit a spark in me, and it explained my life. It explained my church, my family. It was explaining those that I was serving in the ministry. It just was a bright light bulb. And at that point, I just started diving in and working with Dr. Wilder, developing training. Like, we've written books about joy, and But ultimately, when people learn about joy, they go, hey, this sounds really good, but how do I grow some joy? Like, I want this for me and my marriage or my family and my church. Everybody needs some joy. And so, working with Dr. Wilder, we were trying to create exercises to help people learn some joy. So, joy is actually a brain skill. And the
Okay.
part of your brain that runs on joy is actually a nonverbal part of your brain. So, it's not so much my words, although words are very important. It is the nonverbal cues. So, like, babies love to look at mommy's face, and when you light up, you'll see them light up. And that in the brain, like, a whole lot of good things are happening. So really, we just wanted to create practical resources so that people could just build some joy and really train their brain to shift from fear to joy. And the good news is, God designed our brain to run on joy. And my friend, Dr. Marcus Warner, and I decided to write some books on joy, but specifically books that would have practice exercises. So we had a lot of fun with this particular book because it's like, what can families do very practically just to increase their joy? And
Yeah.
so that's
And
really how I got started.
that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that because I mean, you can probably already tell like I'm a personality yellow. I'm
Oh
peoply.
yeah. Yep.
Joy is the easier
Oh
default
yeah.
for me. I
Yep.
always, my husband and I joke he thinks he's a realist. I believe there's only optimists and pessimists. So I'm
Yes.
like, you're a
Yes.
pessimist.
Yep.
But
Yep.
joy seems to come more natural for some people.
Yeah.
But before we talk about the brain science, can you just bridge the gap between um, maybe a believer that says, well, you just need, more Jesus or whatever because
Yeah.
it's the fruit of the spirit. Why are you struggling with joy? Especially
Yeah.
people that, um, have struggled with depression. When
Yeah.
you eat healthy, exercise, you're in the word, you're doing spiritual
Hmm.
disciplines, and you're still struggling with joy. I don't think it is always a spiritual thing. I do
Yeah.
think that there's sometimes trauma or different
Yep.
things. But can you bridge the gap for us for, okay, with all our research, we know there's scientific
Yeah.
things happening in our brain with joy, but also, why can't I just have it if I'm a believer?
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
an
Yeah.
excellent question because it's almost like, God can make it rain. Why doesn't he just make it rain and boost my joy? And in the Bible, joy is actually a relationship. And so it's no
Mm.
accident Jesus prayed for the disciples to have his joy in the book of John. So there are certain things that we need to do. We should read the word. We should try to eat well. We try to move and exercise. And those are all really good things. And so what happens is if joy was not part of my relational experiences growing up, my brain pretty early in life learns to run on a certain template. And what that template is really comes down to, are my needs met at the right times in the right ways?
Mm.
And part of the needs that we have is glad to be together joy. And so infants actually look for a face that light up with joy, and they will seek a face that lights up with joy. They don't seek angry faces. They don't go after hopeless faces. They'll actually go after a joyful face. And I love the example with John the Baptist, right? In his mother's belly, and the sound of Mary, and the babe leapt for joy.
Mm.
So, the good news is we can learn joy, but it is part of a relationship. And so we can certainly grow joy with Jesus. One of the most common phrases I hear in 30 years of ministry, praying with people, is, why is Jesus glad to be with me? Like, we expect him to be mad because we're not doing all the right things. We expect him to be disappointed. More times than not, people are surprised, pleasantly surprised, that Jesus is actually glad to be with them. And they might not even know any of this joy stuff, but they will just say, why is he so glad to be with me? It's like he's really joyful in this place with me. So there are good reasons why we don't have joy. Like, as you said, like depression, anxiety, like those are real things in the brain. And what joy does is it actually changes how our brain works. Like, if you could scan a baby's brain building joy with mom, what you would see is the way that mom's brain is lighting up with joy is being duplicated in baby's brain. And now people might relate to me. I come from a very loving family, but I didn't have a lot of joy. And
Mm.
so if your brain's not growing joy, it's probably running on fear. And so the good news is we can change it, but we change it through relational interactions. So it's when you go to have coffee or tea with a friend and you walk into that coffee shop and your friend sees you, your friend's face lights up. Next thing you know, you have a smile on your face, and that joy is contagious. So, Adam and Eve God put Adam and Eve in the garden, and he said, tend the garden. He provided the garden, right? He gave them everything they needed, but they had to do some tending to the garden. In a sense, joy is tending our garden. It's part of something that grows in our relationships. No matter how old you are, no matter what you've been through, your brain is still able to grow joy, which changes a whole lot of good stuff for your brain and your nervous system.
That's a
So,
hope. That's a good word we need to hear.
yeah,
Because I think, like, even just what I said, my natural bent is towards joy. It's just
yeah,
how I'm wired. It's also
yeah,
like how my parents were,
yeah,
how I was raised, all these
mm,
different things. And that makes sense why my baby loves everybody, but he's
mm.
obsessed with our 5-year-old because he is the
Oh,
most, he's like Buddy the Elf in
oh,
your
sweet.
face 24/7.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, like, I'm like, hey, baby, I love you. But when my 5-year-old comes in with
Mm,
baby, he is obsessed with him because, like you said,
oh,
he's seeking joy.
yeah.
And just even when we're rewiring the brain, I'm so glad you said
Mm,
that
yeah.
because I know through addiction, you create different paths in your
Yeah.
brain. And so when you're wanting to not go down this path of fear and you're wanting to create a new one for joy, somebody
Mm-hmm.
described with addiction to me, it's kind of like you're going through, you know, the weeds for the first
Yeah.
time, but the more you traverse
Mm,
that path and beat it down, then the weeds will grow up over the fear path or the addiction
mm-hmm.
path, and then you will naturally, go down the path of
Yeah.
joy. But that
Yeah.
takes time and hard work. I'm
It does. You're exactly right. Because your brain's, it's a predictive machine, and your brain always looks back to predict what's next. So it always looks in the rearview mirror to predict what's around the corner. So maybe I've had a lack of joy back here. Maybe there was just hard stuff in my rearview mirror. My brain kind of expects hard stuff up here, but when you start making some changes, your brain can update over time and go, wait a minute. I've been growing some joy. This is starting to feel really good and meaningful. Eventually we start to anticipate and expect joy. And I'm glad you made the point about addictions. Addictions counterfeit high energy joy or low energy rest. So if you watch an infant, when they've built a lot of joy, what they'll do is they'll look away. And when they break eye contact, that's a little breather, right?
Yeah.
That's just a little chance to rest. So your brain actually wants high energy joy, but it leads to rest. And then when they rest, guess what? They'll look right back for more joy. And addictions, in a sense, hijack the system. And so people will go after joy counterfeits or rest counterfeits, things that bring you up or
Wow.
things that build you down. And God made us for joy and rest, that little dance.
That's crazy. So it's actually okay that my husband and I are constantly yelling at our 5-year-old, get out of his face.
Yeah.
Because you can tell that baby's like, I love you, but I'm
Yeah.
so overstimulated.
Yeah. That's
And then
right.
he needs a minute, and then he's
Need
like,
some rest.
okay.
Yep, that's it. And you're intuitively just
I
picking
can
that
like,
up. You're
I
you're
know, like,
exactly
hey,
right.
we all
Yeah.
we all need rest.
Yes, that's right. And rest really recharges us for more joy. And it's just learning to find that balance between the two.
And can you kind of tie together why it's so important we need it in our kids?
Mm-hmm.
And just what does a low joy home look like and a high joy home? Because a lot of
Yeah.
times as Americans, especially, we can intermingle joy and happiness.
Yeah.
And we're always trying, even me, I'm 4 kids
Mm-hmm.
in, and I just feel anxious when baby's
Mm-hmm.
crying and not
Yeah.
happy. It's hard. I'm like,
Yeah.
somebody hand him something in the car
Mm-hmm.
seat, like help him, help him. And and it's good to care for him, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like a lot of it's just, I know he's okay and he's just going to fall asleep or we're on a road trip,
Mm.
but I don't want to, have the emotions that I'm feeling,
Yeah.
and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
parenting maybe out of that versus like maybe necessarily what baby needs. But can you
Hmm.
give us a snapshot of maybe what a low joy home looks like and a
Hmm.
high joy home? Because we can all be either in denial or
Yeah.
extra critical of ourselves. So maybe
Yeah.
we could hear some examples. What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, God created our brain to be kind of like an amplifier, and it's going to amplify what's in the environment. So, if your brain
Mm,
is runs on joy, you expect joy. Your brain is saying, "Hey, I bet there's some joy around the corner." And in joy-filled homes, there's a lot of security. I don't have to perform. I know I'm loved no matter what I do. Children with joy gives us strength to navigate the hard stuff. So children who have some joy, they're able to navigate things knowing that there's going to be good things around the corner from this, even if that's hard. We call that returning to joy from big emotions. So joy just gives us the confidence that, you know what? My upset is what leads to comfort and connection. And so children have that security and they have stability and they have that emotional resilience that they can bounce back to joy when things go wrong. So the brain's been trained to amplify the good stuff, even though it might be a bad day. They're able to find those gold nuggets from the day and say, yes, it was a really hard day, but here's what I enjoyed. And they're able to find that. Whereas low joy homes, pain and problems get amplified. And so that's where fear kind of takes over. And now it's like, okay, what do I need to do to avoid pain here? Right? How do I avoid pain today? And so their brain expects it, predicts it, and is kind of swimming in that soup. It's like, okay, your brain's constantly scanning the environment, either for faces that light up to see me or for threats. So the good news is more joy trains my brain to quiet the fear. Less joy, the amplifier gets turned up on fear.
okay.
And one of the, messages of hope that we give people is that no matter what was in your home growing up, your brain can continue to change and grow new pathways. It's called
Praise
brain
God.
plasticity, right? So we can things that weren't there growing up, I can actually learn them later. It just takes a little time. It's like growing a garden. It takes some time, takes some practice, and it takes, really just being purposeful about it. And I invite people like, what would it look like if Jesus borrowed your face? What would the look be on your face if Jesus was able to borrow your face today? And I'll
That's a
remind
good question.
it's a neat little thought. Like I'll tell my kids, what does it look like today if Jesus is borrowing your face? Like, yeah,
Wow.
let's ask for his help here to see some of what he sees in
Mm,
life and situations. And so joy gives us strength to suffer well and grow the good stuff.
yes.
Whereas, low joy, it just depletes our battery and we don't feel like we have what we need to
Yeah.
navigate life and relationships, and that's hard. That's
Yeah.
not fun.
Totally. I used to even like I ran my mouth a lot the first 5 years of marriage, you know?
Oh.
But like we still joke a little bit about some of the things, and one of the things is
Mm,
that when my husband would be leading worship, I'd
mm.
be like, "Are you happy? Tell your face. Tell your face."
Oh, that's
you
cool.
know? And he's like, so he would actually like jokingly use that with the worship team because sometimes
Oh,
like you're just so serious,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you are happy and you are joyful, but we need to alert your face.
Yes.
And I can't even remember where I read this, but one of my kids tends to be more low joy,
Yeah,
or like they will have everything they could ever want in a day,
yeah,
but then they would focus on the fear,
yeah. That's
and then
right.
we've even had just deep conversations with that child being like, why is joy so
Mm,
easy for them, why is joy so easy for my sibling? And so we would do all the things like, let's pray, let's talk about gratitude. And then sometimes I'm just straight up like, hey, you're being a punk. You need to smile at me
Mm,
for 30 seconds.
yeah.
And like I heard, I don't know if you know that this is true or not, like just smiling, like
Yeah.
it creates brainwaves
It
that
does.
alerts your brain you are happy,
Mm,
you are okay. I don't know if
yeah.
that's true,
It's
but I feel
true. I
like it's
mean,
kind of
yeah.
worked.
You're right. I mean, research has come out that says, even, trying to put a smile on your face can change your mood.
Yeah,
And, so yeah, I love what you're saying here, just helping people to be aware of their face. Like it wasn't natural for me to show joy. I didn't even realize, what was on my face. But as I started learning this and practicing some of these skills, it's like, okay, it starts to feel more genuine over time. It
yeah,
just takes a little while.
yeah.
You mentioned gratitude. That's another great thing. Like when you remember times of joy, what it does is your brain responds as though you're reliving the moment all over again. So remembering joy from your day, sharing that at the dinner table. We don't ignore the hard stuff, but what joy does is it gives us strength to better navigate the hard stuff.
Mm,
Remembering joy, sharing some joy stories with people, genuinely being glad to be together, all of that, like it changes the brain every time our
that's awesome.
children see us light up when they walk into the room. That's changing their brain. Their joy center in the brain's actually lifting some weights and getting stronger with every joyful face that lights up to see me.
That's
It's a game
awesome.
changer.
I love that. And I recently did an episode with a mental health therapist, and she talked about how, you know, that joy and fear, like
Yeah,
they can't just coexist together.
yeah,
Your brain
that's
is
right.
doing one or the other.
That's right.
And all this time, when we read the word about the festivals and the times to
Yes.
remember what God's done,
Mm,
it wasn't just about giving God glory and remembering what He
yeah.
brought you through. It was also for us, for our brain to
Mm,
remember and practice gratitude,
yes.
just kind of like what you said. And I think
Yeah.
that's so cool too,
Mm,
because that's one thing we do as a family for our Christmas tree, is that sometimes our ornaments are fun, but most of them are memories of what God's done that year,
neat.
or things we can point to or praise Him
Mm,
for or just focus on. And it is cool to discuss that as a family
yeah.
and whatnot. It is weird though to think when my kid is like 35, are they going to be
Mm,
like, yeah, my mom disciplined me by I had to smile at her for
yep.
half a minute or whatever.
Yep.
But I am trying to not me parent
Yeah.
out of fear, but both sides of our family, both my husband and I have had bouts of depression over the years,
Yeah.
and I can see it. I can
Yeah.
see the seed of that in my little
Hmm.
kid, and I will like
Yeah.
I am not going to water that,
Yeah.
and I
That's
just
right.
want to pray against it because I know
Mm,
how hard it is like watching people I love,
mm,
be more bent towards
yeah.
the Eeyore
Yeah.
mentality, I
Yeah.
guess I would say,
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
can you help us with your book? Can we just kind of do a
Hmm.
brief overview of the four habits you talk about?
Hmm.
And for those that are wanting the book, you can visit Chris Coursey's website, Thrive Today. Is that
Yep.
right? To
Yep.
see all of his books and resources. And you can use the coupon code
Hmm.
Joy Filled December for 20% off this book. And I'll link it
Yes.
in the show notes. And for those of you local, I'm going to do a big order to help save on
Mm,
shipping. So
yeah.
if you're
Great
listening
idea.
and you live nearby me and want a book, reach out. I'll set a date for that. But all of December, everybody can get 20% off
Mm,
using Joy Filled December coupon. But can you
great.
overview the four habits you talk
Hmm.
about in this book? Um, what they are, how
Mm,
they can help us just
gladly.
become more
Yeah.
Christ like parents for our kids.
Yes. Gladly. So, yeah, we've come up with the four habits, A, B, C, D, to try to just simplify this. And the A is for attune. So what attune is we're sharing upsets. So what that means is when I see my child sad, maybe something hard happened from the day, I don't jump in to fix it. I listen and I share some of what they're feeling. So this sounds really hard. I could see why you'd feel sad about that. So what we're doing is we're teaching them they're not alone. You are not alone here. I am with you. I see you, I hear you, and I understand you. So we're joining them. So tune just means sit, listen, reflect back what you hear. And as you share it, what happens is their brain's bonding center no longer feels alone. So it's when we feel alone, emotions are harder to manage. Upsets are bigger. When I feel like you're with me and you see me and you're trying to enter in, suddenly I feel, okay, I'm not alone. I have someone here and I have shared capacity to now better handle whatever the emotion is. So attune, we're able to be with our children in their sadness, and we can eventually ask them, well, what would be helpful right now? What do you need while you feel this big feeling? So it's when we try to fix, they get feeling alone. It's like, well, you're just not hearing me, Dad. I'm trying to tell you something. They need some attunement. And the B is building bounce. So what that means is I'm helping my children return to joy from their big upsets. So we're weeping with those who weep. We're rejoicing with those who rejoice. And so building bounce is very purposely helping them to recover. And what that might be is, okay, how can I validate what my child is feeling and how can I offer some comfort? And
Yeah.
what this is doing is it's helping them learn that my upsetting emotions don't have the final word. There's more going on here. And so validating would just say, I can see this really bothers you. Like, you are really mad right now, aren't you? Even though I might be the source of the problem, right? Because I'm not giving my child whatever it is he wants. I say,
Sure.
you're really mad at Dad right now, aren't you? Like, I can see that. I hear it. So we offer validation. And then comfort would be, hey, what would be helpful right now? So when we validate and we comfort, what they're learning to do is to better manage what they feel. Again, not having to fix it. Validation, you say what you see and what you hear. Comfort is what would be helpful here, or is there anything good that we can hold on to right now? Is there anything good going on? And this is where like mutual problem solving starts to come in. Like, hey, this sounds really big here. Would you like, can I help you with this? Or what do you need? So building bounce is we're teaching them how to bounce back. And as the children get a little bit older, we can start to tell stories of times we've bounced back to joy from our upsets. So I make it a point. One of my sons really struggles with hopeless despair. Anytime he slips into that sand pit, he gets stuck. So we started telling him stories of times where my wife and I felt hopeless about something and how we were able to get back to joy and peace. So just simple little stories. These can be 2-3 minute stories. They don't have to be long. But building bounce is just strengthening their recovery skills so that they are able to get back to joy and peace. And
That's
that,
so good because I've definitely failed at like jumping to correct
oh yeah,
because especially I'm uncomfortable, you're in pain, I want to fix it.
yeah, yep,
But then also I've shamed my child for
mm-hmm.
being hopeless and in despair.
Yeah,
And it's just our own selfishness and
mm-hmm.
brokenness as parents for us to be like giving so much and all and trying to make a great gift or a great day. And
Mm-hmm.
then that child, I like how you said that, slips into that pit.
Yep,
And it's kind of on a cycle. I'm always like,
yeah,
what did they eat?
yeah,
you
really,
know,
yep,
like
yep,
what is going on? Because we've been on this, going great, but then like there's that pit that comes
mm-hmm.
and I've shamed my child for being in that pit and had to realize like because my husband and I would just be like frustrated, like, buddy, we gave you everything.
Mm-hmm.
You literally have everything you've asked for and more.
Yeah,
And so we have these conversations that it's never going to be enough. It's
yeah,
never going to be enough.
yeah.
And you know, then the kid's like, I'm praying for God to help me be happy, but I just
Oh,
like, but I can tell
yeah,
there's sometimes that switch,
yes,
something's going on, and I want to
mm-hmm.
help them. And
Yeah,
instead of helping on occasion, I've been like, ah!
yeah.
you
It's
know,
easy to do. I mean,
when
it
the
is.
Eeyore shows up, and then I've been
Mm-hmm.
like, I've had to grow in my own maturity of like,
Yeah,
nope, You're not going to emotionally manipulate
Mm,
the rest of the family.
yeah.
We're moving forward. Join us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And inward, you can still be sad and
Hmm.
discouraged, but moving forward, joyful as a parent will
Yeah.
help your kids. Because
Yeah.
sometimes as a young mom, I was just waiting for my kid to be happy so I could be
Hmm.
happy.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not wise, you
Yeah.
know? And you
Yeah.
realize, oh, they're emotionally
Hmm.
manipulating me. And also, they don't feel secure
Yeah.
because I'm not solid, because they're
Mhm.
not solid.
That's right.
Anyway,
Yeah. I think
so
every parent can relate to that. Yeah.
how do we
Totally.
help? How do we help? But
Yeah.
no, I like the pit thing of how do we help climb out, and we just
Hmm.
keep practicing, we keep talking
Yeah.
and moving forward
That's
and
right.
being that discipline. I think um, for us as parents to be disciplined and moving forward and being joyful even when our kids are,
Yes.
you know, maybe
Yep.
in the pit.
Yep. That's right. And it's hard to watch your children hurt and suffer. Honestly, that I think is one of the
Mhm.
hardest things about being a parent.
Totally.
It's
Yeah.
just so hard. And just keep in mind, like, at the end of the day, the best gift we can give our kids is that they feel seen, heard, and understood. They might not get what they want. Like when I'm the source of the upset, I'm still not going to give my son all the cookies before dinner or whatever it is.
Sure.
But I can validate, comfort, and you know what? You start to see the lights come on over time. It's like, okay, I feel like you get me. And it's that you get me feeling is what helps them to be able to get back to joy and peace.
Mm,
But it is hard. I mean, I love the example of Job. Like his friends sat with him for 7 nights. Like they didn't say anything, which is amazing to be able to do that. But then they start trying to find the reasons why this happened. And he's like, what miserable comforters are you all? But they sat with him for
mm,
7 days, which is a big deal.
that is
Um,
big. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's really the bounce, it's just helping our kids bounce back. And over time, like my son with, the hopeless despair, over time, they're going to spend less time in that emotion because their brain's learning, okay, I have a pathway out here. I know the password to get through this door. And that's
Mhm.
where this training, every time we practice this, it's actually building this database, so to speak, in their brain that goes, okay, this, I could do this. And
That's
it helps
great.
them get out of the rut, so to speak.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. And have you seen like brain scans of depression or joy, or have you seen
Yeah.
those things?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In fact, what's interesting, with depression is you can see on some of the scans, you can actually see where the parts of the brain are just not working. And whereas you see a brain that's a joyful state, you'll see this thing's all lit up. It's running. Dr. Amen has a lot of SPECT scans where he scans the brain with addictions, depression, anxiety, and then joy, and it looks completely different. When the brain is in a state of joy, you see everything's firing, and
Yeah.
it's a cool thing. So God really created us for joy, and joy means we're glad to be together. Happiness is circumstantial. Joy is relational. Like, hey, I'm glad you're here because I'm going through some really hard stuff, and it helps to be able to spend some time with you.
Yeah.
That's the sense that we have with joy, and that leads to the C, which is just correcting with care. And this is how we keep relationships bigger than problems. And so we learn, how do we correct our children in a way that they're learning a path back to joy. So I'm not just shaming them when they've done something wrong, but I'm staying relational in the process. So we call it relate, resolve, and restore. Relate is just, hey, I'm curious, what's going on? I thought you were cleaning your room. I see that you're reading a book. What happened? I thought you were supposed to be, cleaning your room. So I'm curious. And then the resolve is just, okay, what's the problem here? What's going on? Why aren't you doing A, B, and C? And okay, there might be consequences. There might be consequences for that. But what we're doing is we're restoring the relationship here. So at the end of the day, I'm not happy with you, but I love you. So they don't question whether I love them,
Mhm.
right? And shame is a response when we see someone's not glad to be with us, we'll feel some shame. But the brain can learn how to get back to joy from shame. It's like, hey, I'm not happy right now because you're supposed to be doing A, B, and C. They still love you, you know, but let's do what we're supposed to do. So in a sense, it's learning to be relational and correct in age appropriate ways. You know, that's what the C is all about. Just if they're too young, correction's not going to work. We don't correct our little ones. It's just as they get older and they're able to do the things that, you know, they're capable of doing. And the
Yeah,
D, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say, just real quick, can you give an example of like the toxic correction? Because that was
Yeah.
something that stood out to me. I was like, oh, I'm
Yes.
really good at this. Oh, not this last week. Oh, oh, oops, you know, like, because we are constantly training and correcting, especially young kids.
Mhm.
It's just, you're training all day, you
Yeah.
know, like
Oh,
over
yeah.
and over and over again. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And then the Lord's like, why haven't you learned your lessons yet? And I'm
Hmm.
like, sorry, Jesus.
That's good. Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yep. Oh, yeah.
it's like, got to pass the grace on. But
Yes.
you say something like, um, oh, yes, because it's really about selfishness, like our own.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't want to be embarrassed by your behavior, or I'm feeling inadequate, or I don't want to deal with you.
Hmm.
When we have those things and we correct out of that,
Hmm.
it really sucks the life out of the relationship with the kid,
Yeah, it
you know,
does.
because we're people pleasing or we're embarrassed or
Hmm.
whatever,
Yeah.
versus correcting with care.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's a great point here. So healthy shame is when I'm correcting a behavior. Toxic shame is when I say, you're the problem, you're bad. So healthy shame say, hey, this behavior is not appropriate. It's not, you know, this is not who we are. We are a people who are gentle and kind. And like, you know, we're identity statements. Here's who we are. Here's who we're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so healthy shame would just be correcting behavior. Toxic shame is when we say, you're bad. I can't believe you did this again. You are such a fool, you know, and we've probably all been on the receiving end of toxic shame. And like the brain does not like toxic shame because there's nothing redemptive.
Mm-hmm.
So healthy shame just says, hey, this behavior, we got to work on this behavior because this doesn't reflect who God made you to be. I know you to be this,
Yeah.
right? And that actually creates a love bond when we have people who remember who we are when we temporarily forget. And God's really good at this, right? Like
Amen.
he's really good at reminding us, no, this is who you are. And that behavior does not reflect who I created you to be. But toxic shame, it's not helpful. It leaves us feeling kind of blasted and all alone. It's when people are trying to say that's who we are. No, that behavior is not who you are. So the good news about correcting would just in a life-giving way is like, hey, I know you to be kind, and right now you're being mean to your brother. That is not a good reflection of who God made you to be. And
Mm-hmm.
that's going to feel different than, hey, what are you doing? You know, you're bad, and I can't believe you did this again. And so helping us to keep our relational oxygen mask on really helps us in times of correction. And I tell parents, sometimes you might need a few minutes to quiet before you try to have that conversation or to get relational. Because when our brain is out of relational mode, we get stuck and we don't handle the situations very well. And our kids, you know, they're not gonna feel like we're with them or we're in their court.
That's like a
Um,
mommy timeout.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. And those are really good. I mean, hey, you know, just give yourselves a few minutes to catch your breath, then have the conversation. But in the moment, uh, that we end up saying or reacting in ways that we later go, oh, I really wish I wouldn't have handled it
Yeah,
quite like that. I would have rather handled it this way.
for sure.
So,
And shame is like a cycle. So,
yeah.
you know, a lot of times it can lead to overachieving, or at the same time, you can find yourself or find your kid continuing to go down into the rabbit hole of worse and worse. And you're like,
Yes.
but I was shaming you. Wouldn't you want to be
Mm-hmm.
better? But that's not how the brain works, you know, when
That's right.
we don't
You
realize
got it.
that we're doing toxic traits like that. So we
Yeah.
have attune, building bounds, correcting with care. And
Mm-hmm.
can you just say
Yeah.
attunement, attuning to your kid? Can you just say that in one sentence again?
Yeah. It's sharing emotions.
Sharing emotions.
Sharing
That's a great way to
emotions.
think of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
just sharing emotions and sitting and sharing, like, I can see that would be really frustrating for you.
Okay.
We're sharing emotions. It doesn't mean we have to even fix it. Now, sometimes there might need troubleshooting, but if we don't share emotions, everything else is going to feel really unhelpful
Sure.
at that point. So I don't feel like you're with me if we
Yeah,
don't share emotions.
totally. Okay,
Yeah.
and then we have D. So that's A, B, C.
Yep. The D is develop disciplines relationally. So this is where like the training comes in. So we can actually train our brain to run on joy, to learn to return to joy from upsetting emotions. We can learn to rest. We can learn to see some of what God sees when he looks at a situation, or when he looks at our children, or he looks at our, we look at ourselves. So this is where we learn to master habits and skills. And that's why the exercises are in the book, because there's, these are exercises we can practice to strengthen the skills. So if I'm not very good at quieting and resting, I can take 3 minutes and just take a breather with my family. I can just take 30 seconds to just take a couple deep breaths. Like, quieting is the greatest predictor for lifelong mental health. Can I quiet? Can I rest? So it's a learned skill. It doesn't seem like it'd be a learned skill. Like, some of our families are really good at resting, and some of our families like, rest. Oh no, we've got stuff to do. We don't rest. So this is where the skill practice comes in with our children. That's where the stories come in. That's where, sharing some gratitude and thanking Jesus for his gifts. Being able to do some of these things together is actually what strengthens our brain's ability to use those skills. So the good news is, no matter how old we are, no matter what we've been through, your brain is always able to develop those disciplines relationally. It just takes a little practice with your spouse, with your children, maybe with a small group. And a little bit goes a long way. When we're looking at the need for some of this, we think, oh, I've got so much work ahead of me. I'm not good at this stuff. I'm just like, oh, the mountain's so big. I tell people a little bit of joy goes a long way. Just a little bit. Take a few minutes to share some joy stories, some of your favorite glad to be together stories with your family, and watch what happens. Just try it. And just a few minutes can go a long way. It just takes a little bit of time.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that. And that's such a good word and just good hope for all of us because every human has experienced pain and suffering at some level,
Yeah.
and we want to protect our children from that, but
Yeah.
sometimes maybe we don't realize that the truth is they are going to have pain and suffer, and so we need to equip them with
Yes. That's
being
right.
able to find joy again,
Mm-hmm.
seek it again, and build that and
Amen.
stand on that. So some of us are probably like, yay, I'm excelling in this
Mm-hmm.
area, or ooh, I have work to do, or I just think of people because I'm peoply.
Yeah.
So I'm going through everyone in my home going, okay, this child is really showing this child's showing this, and they're
Mm-hmm.
getting the same parents. So how do I
Yeah.
help them,
Mm-hmm.
But if an adult is listening and they're realizing, man, like I am struggling with
Mm-hmm.
joy and I'm
Yeah.
doing all the things, right?
Yeah.
I'm eating healthy, I'm
Mm-hmm.
exercising, I'm getting rest, I'm doing all the things. Maybe I might possibly need some depression meds for a short
Mm-hmm.
stint or
Yeah.
whatever to help
Yep.
my brain connect
Yeah.
again.
That's right. That's right.
What could you tell them to go home and do today? What could be the first baby step that somebody
Mm-hmm.
that is low joy
Mm-hmm.
that wants to change could do today?
Yeah. Great question. So the things that I would do is set a timer and make it a practice to just quiet. Just find a comfortable spot. Take some deep breaths. Some people actually lay on the floor with a book on their belly so that they breathe deeply, make the book go up and down, right? The main thing is you're quieting. Quieting grows our capacity. The other thing I would do
Wow.
is I would, at the end of the day, whether you're alone or you have a spouse, you could do this in your prayer time. Think about 3 highlights from your day. Just what are three highlights? They can be very simple. I caught a green light going into work, and that's it. I was running late. Very simple. 3 highlights, 3 good things from your day that you can enjoy. Again, doing it with spouse and share those things. Doing it in your prayer time, doing it in a journal. 3 things from my day. And then 3 things I appreciate about someone else, whether it's a spouse, a child, a coworker. Just what would be those 3 things? If you get to share it with them, even better. But what are those 3 things with examples? That's a big one.
Okay.
And then 3 things you appreciate about God. What are 3 things you appreciate about God? And tell them. So just basically, God, I really appreciate that you're patient. I really have needed your patience lately. And I'm so grateful you're patient with me. So that little exercise, my wife and I did this exercise when we were first married because she wasn't sleeping well and she's a light sleeper. When we did that exercise, it took about 10 minutes. The nights we did the exercise, she'd fall asleep within 10 minutes. The nights we didn't, and her mind was racing, she'd be up for 2 to 3 hours. So it profoundly impacted our lives. And there were nights I was already half asleep. She'd say, honey, can we do that exercise? Oh, can you and Jesus do it? I'm so tired. I'm already half asleep. So you work with whatever you have to work with. If you're single, you do whatever version of that you can do. But what you're doing is you're ending your day. Appreciation is like an anti-stressor. So it actually counteracts the effects of stress. So appreciation changes everything. In fact, if you do appreciation 3 times a day for 5 minutes, just thinking about looking at pictures on your phone, trying to feel some of the joyful moments. 3 times a day 5 minutes each time for 30 days will reset your nervous system to run on the fuel of joy and peace instead of fear.
Wow.
Very simple, right? 15 minutes a day.
I love that. And I love, because like I'm a recovering like type A, like I love that the first step was to be calm, because I'm like, no, we need to get the gratitude list going now. Like I want to just like get after it. But I love that it was the first step is to rest,
Yes,
and to breathe and to stop task.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 things thankful for that day, 3 things for a person.
That's right.
And 3 things about God. That's awesome.
That's right. It's so
So
simple, but
that
yet
will reset your nervous system?
Yeah. If you do that, the key is with the 3 times a day, it seems so easy, 5-minute settings, but it's actually gets like after 60 seconds, I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about my to-do list, my laundry list, my problems.
Sure.
It's hard in the beginning, but once you start doing it, you'll feel the difference. And everybody's pretty not sure it's going to work until they start doing it. They're like, wow, I'm already noticing a difference and I'm only, 7 days in. Wow. So just try it. And let the experience speak for itself, but just try it. Try to protect those little moments to practice appreciation.
And does your book, The Joy Switch, does it talk about this or?
Yep, it does. Yep,
is that a good book for somebody that's like, okay, I need to work on joy? Would that be a good next step?
It would, because it's practical and it has those exercises in it. And so honestly, that's probably the best place to start for people that just are looking for something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. This is so good. Thank you so much. Is there, where can people find you online or follow you or your ministry or all the things?
Yeah, everything's on our website, thrivetoday.org, but we're on Facebook and Twitter and our X and Instagram and all that good stuff. So, but if they go to our website, we have tons of resources, free resources they can also download and enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah,
so good
thank you. Oh, Megan, this was fun. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. Thank you for joining the Only Love Today podcast. I hope you were encouraged to look like love no matter where God has you. If you want to learn more about what we discussed, be sure to check out the show notes and head on over to onlylovetoday.com. If you were encouraged by this conversation, please share it with a friend and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, whatever happens today, before you respond, stop and think, only love today.